Welcome everybody, my name is Georgina Cole and welcome to this Birds of the Red Sea awareness video. So first a little introduction. I'm from the UK and I have been living in Elguna, 25 kilometers north of Hurghada, on the Red Sea coast of Egypt since 2004. The move began after I fell in love with a Nubian-style apartment found for sale online, and I started dreaming of leaving the grey skies of England behind and enjoying year-round sunshine, living under domed ceilings, surrounded by mountains, lagoons, and the Red Sea. My passion for bird watching began 8 years ago, after discovering kestrels that nested every year directly opposite my balcony. Every spring, I watched their daily routine of catching prey and raising their young. I also enjoyed watching the biannual migration of white storks and large birds of prey as they passed silently in the thermals above, heading for Europe in the spring and Africa in the autumn. In 2019, I became interested in learning about all the species and documented everything I found on the worldwide database eBird. I also began a Birds of the Red Sea awareness project as a member of Rotary Club of Red Sea, Elguna. This webinar is part of Birds of the Red Sea project, which is a citizen science program aimed at engaging the community as citizen scientists in the monitoring and conservation of the Red Sea birds. So now we're going to talk about the following topics: birds of Egypt, why we need birds more than they need us, which birds are found in the Red Sea, the photographer's code of conduct, bird identification, bird watching equipment, citizen science and useful tools. According to the Egyptian Ornithology Rarities Committee, 466 species of birds have been recorded in Egypt. 2/3 of these birds are migratory species that pass by on their way between Africa and Europe in the spring and autumn, and 1/3 are resident and breed in the area. 300 species have been recorded on the eBird database for Al-Bahr al-Ahmar, which is Arabic for the Red Sea. We will talk about eBird later on. Each species of bird falls into a group, and there are 50 groups of birds recorded for the Red Sea. Pictured here is a common sandpiper, which belongs to the largest of the groups, which is shorebirds. Why do we need birds more than they need us? Birds play an important role in the functioning of the world's ecosystems. This directly impacts human health, the economy, and food production. Let's look at more details. Birds control pests. A recent study showed that birds eat 400 to 500 million tons of insects per year. The kestrel, pictured here, is the farmer's friend, as they, like many birds, eat beetles, grasshoppers, and other insects. Birds pollinate plants. Around 5% of the plants humans use for food or medicine are pollinated by birds. The pollen is transferred from flower to flower on the bird's bill as they feed on nectar. Birds are nature's clean-up crew. Vultures arrive within 1 hour to scavenge on a carcass before deadly diseases start to develop. Crows, like the hooded crow here, are often seen clearing up roadkill Birds spread seeds. As the birds fly, the seeds they have eaten are dispersed through their droppings, which also gives a nice coating of fertilizer. Birds keep coral reefs alive. Seabird droppings help to fertilize marine ecosystems like coral reefs. It's wonderful when you go out to sea, when the rocks are exposed at low tide, and the seabirds gather noisily together in large numbers. Here we have the white-eyed gulls. Which birds are found in the Red Sea? The photographs in this video were all taken during the past winter, and here is a lovely Eurasian spoonbill. So let's start with some of the common birds found in the gardens. House sparrows are found everywhere, and they always join the hotel guests for breakfast, waiting for any opportunity to pick up the crumbs from the croissants. The laughing dove is a small pigeon. This one is all fluffed up as it was busy preening. For sure, we have all been woken up early in the morning to a tree full of hooded crows squawking loudly. This crow is gathering twigs for its nest. Cattle egrets are found in all the gardens, on the grass, and balanced on top of hedges as they tiptoe along, seeking out insects. The common kestrel, my beautiful neighbour, they hover effortlessly in the skies as they search below for prey, and are very territorial and love to use the same perches every day. Now let's take a look at some of the shorebirds. The grey plovers love to scurry along the sand, probing with their beak for a potential meal. The Kentish plover is smaller and tilts its head to one side, tapping and listening to the sand for something good to eat below the surface. The greater sand plover is slightly larger than the Kentish plover, and the white ring doesn't extend all the way round the neck. Here we have a lovely common redshank with red legs and bill feeding at a mangrove lagoon. The Eurasian curlew is often seen patrolling the shore around the lagoons, picking up little crabs from the sand before taking them to the water to wash before consuming. Now we'll look at some of the herons. Striated herons can also be seen around the lagoons busy fishing. When I talk about lagoons, I mean the tidal lagoons that get left behind along the coastline. The western reef heron is identified by the blackish yellow beak and yellow feet. It looks similar to the cattle egret, which has black feet. The magnificent grey heron, with an enormous wingspan of around 2 meters. I often watch one fly across Laguna skies at dawn and dusk. Let's take a look at a few gulls and terns. Caspian terns can be identified with their bright red chunky beak and black cap. Lesser black-backed gulls have different subspecies called hooglins and steppe gulls. With just tiny differences between the species, it makes identification quite difficult. Slender-billed gulls gather in large numbers. I've counted 70 on a sandbank at one of the mangrove lagoons here in Laguna. So let's talk about the photographer's code of conduct. It's important that we always have respect for birds and their habitat. Avoid disturbing or causing stress to the birds. A photo of a flock of birds flying away from you is not a good photo. Wear natural colours to blend in with nature, so it is harder for the birds to see you. No sudden movements, and move as slowly as possible. Keep as quiet as possible no shouting, no mobile phones ringing. Never disturb nests, keep your distance. I'm blessed with the kestrels choosing every year to nest opposite me, so I can take photographs without any disturbance. And quite often they're perched directly above my head. So what do we need to look for to identify a bird? Let's talk about size. You can see this group of birds are all different shapes, colours and sizes. Try to compare the bird you've seen with the size of another species you recognise. Is it small like a sparrow, larger like a crow, or big like a heron? Is the silhouette slender or round? Does it have a large or small head? Does it have a long neck? Let's look at colour. This stunning Nile Valley sunbird male changes into this iridescent, colourful breeding plumage at this time of year with a long black tail. To identify a bird, look at the colour of the head, back, wings, underparts, bill and tail. What shape is the bird's bill or beak? Is it long, short, curved, straight, stubby or slender? The main picture is a western reef heron that loves to fish. Above, to the left, is a common kingfisher, often seen hovering above the lagoons and diving into the water with a splash, emerging with a fish. The kestrel, to the right, has a hooked beak for its prey. How long are the legs? How are the feet? Are they webbed like a duck or long like a heron? Do they have claws with long talons like the osprey at the top? What colour are they? The kestrel is a passerine, which means it has 3 forward-pointing toes and 1 reverse-pointing toe, used for perching. Observe what the bird is doing. Is it probing the ground for food, like this spur-winged lapwing at the golf course? Is it alone, or in large groups? Does it hover? Is it gliding high in the thermals above? Where does the bird live? Did you see the bird in the trees or hedges? On the ground, in the shadows, in the desert, on the shoreline? All these questions help to identify a bird. Let's talk about bird watching equipment. Most importantly, just use your eyes and your ears. Leave the car at home and take a walk in the sunshine. The birds are everywhere and never fail to surprise you. Binoculars or spotting scope, not essential but great to get a close-up view of the birds. Here we have Dr. Sharif Bakr Eldin, Egypt's leading environmentalist and ornithologist, who visited El Gouna recently. He was very impressed with the bird life here and the variety of trees which attracts the birds. We spotted 34 different species on a tour around, and it was my first time to look through a spotting scope. Take some watercolours and paint pictures. The best way to learn the different shapes of birds is to draw or paint them. Keep a diary. Take pencil sketches and write down notes about everything you see and the date. Take a guidebook with you, or download an online bird ID guide, or print the checklists of the birds in your area from eBird. All the photographs and hundreds more can be found on the Facebook page, Birds of the Red Sea. So now let's talk about camera equipment. Photographing birds is not the easiest of subjects. The birds are shy, They move fast, are hidden in trees behind the leaves, or are just too far away for a clear shot with the camera. The choice of cameras is overwhelming, so I'm just going to talk about the cameras I've used and taken these photos with. It was buying a super zoom bridge camera that started me on the journey of bird photography. Bridge cameras are larger than compact cameras, but not as big as DSLRs. They have impressive focal lengths with a built-in lens and are light to carry. I'm sure you've all watched Nat Geo Wild and the professional bird photographers with super heavy equipment and gigantic lenses. Well, thankfully, technology is advancing every day, and photography equipment is getting more compact and lighter. I contacted Canon Egypt last autumn for help in understanding this technology and what was available here. I told them about the voluntary project I was working on to raise awareness of the birds, and they were so impressed they sent the very latest high technology camera and lenses for me to try. The photographs in this video have been taken with the Canon EOS R6, which is a mirrorless camera with a 20 megapixel full frame sensor. I've been using the Canon RF 100 to 500 mm zoom lens, pictured here, the white lens. Also the Canon RF 800 mm super telephoto lens. And also the Canon RF extender 1.4 times, which I can use with either lens to extend the range by 1.4. So what does this camera do that my old bridge camera can't? Well, most important, the quality of the photographs. And the advantage for bird photography is the high-speed animal eye focus system and automatic tracking. That means the camera's focus nails the bird's eye as it flies across the sky, adjusting the focus as the bird comes closer automatically. Another benefit is to capture the different wing movement. For instance, a kingfisher hovering, then diving into the water and surfacing with a fish. You need a fast shutter speed to capture all the action. This Canon camera gives up to 12 frames per second with the mechanical shutter, and you have the option to switch up to 20 frames per second with the electronic silent shutter, which is great not to disturb the birds when you can get close. The video footage can be shot in 4K quality. Now in this photo I'm using a tripod, which is rare, as I usually walk everywhere just carrying the camera. The image stabilization system in the camera and lenses means that everything can be handheld. I used the tripod on this occasion as I had the 800 mm lens plus the 1.4 extender attached, and the gulls I was videoing were a long way in the distance, and I didn't want any movement at all, especially in the wind. Let's talk about some useful tools. eBird is a worldwide database and I use it all the time. Sightings can be recorded by anyone, and everyone can search for different species by country, for example Egypt, by region, so Al-Bahr al-Ahmar, the Red Sea, or by a hotspot like Alguna. There are many locations recorded along the Red Sea by tourists on holiday at their hotel. You can set your language preferences, including Arabic. And when you click on any of the species in the list, you can see more detailed information. Many species look different if they are male or female, juvenile, or let's look at an example. This is the data for the white stork. You can check how many observations have been reported in your area and see all the hotspots in the region on the map. And check what time of year the birds are here. On this chart you can see the birds are migrating in the spring and returning in the autumn. You can also listen to a recording of the sound that the bird makes. And bar charts can be downloaded to show which species to look out for each month. Alerts can also be set for when rare sightings are reported. The Merlin app can be downloaded to help with ID2 onto your phone. Either answer 5 questions to describe the bird and where and when you saw it, or upload a photograph. It's also a field guide with suggestions of what to look for in your area. You can also download an app from the Ornithological Society of the Middle East, which shows all the species with Arabic names. On Red Sea Project website, there are photographic guides to download in English or Arabic in the e-library, covering about 100 species sighted here and all photographed in the Red Sea, with the English or Arabic names and the scientific name. The spring migration has already begun, so keep an eye on the skies, especially in the mornings, for different types of buzzards, white and black storks, great white pelicans, common cranes, eagles, kites and harriers. This will continue over the next few weeks, and you can check for the photos that I hope to capture on the Birds of the Red Sea Facebook page. Also check the trees and the gardens, which will be full of the smaller birds, like the wheatears, the pipits, the shrikes, the warblers. Follow the blog on Red Sea Project's website for the latest news on all marine conservation and safe diving articles. Red Sea Project website is available in 11 languages, and they are aiming to increase this to 15 languages by mid-2021. This video is actually a webinar, and it will also be translated into different languages. So check the events page on the Red Sea Project website. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Check out another of the webinars organised by Red Sea Projects about dolphins or dugongs or sharks. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and happy birding.